Gen Z is getting creative, but not in the most legal way. With the rise of unemployment and the wasteland of available jobs, younger and younger people are turning to other means to pay bills and experience luxuries. There has been a huge influx of fraud sweeping through the world, from crypto scams to stealing Pokemon cards. Is this some overblown stat or a growing trend? Let's break it down. Welcome back to the channel, tune in or ghost out. A recent study conducted by the company Sift, a fraud protection agency, shows 42% of Gen Z has committed some type of first-party fraud within the last year. Chances are you've come across or maybe even participated in some of these schemes, ranging from DoorDash and Amazon refund schemes to Cash App and PayPal hijacking. Our generation has given birth to what is now known as the methods, but usually these lead down some dark roads and might even end you up in a jail cell. That used to be enough of a deterrent to keep us away from doing things like this, but not anymore. Some may say that these are the effects of a low-trust society. I think this problem is being fueled by bigger issues. One's fueled by a heavily exaggerated lifestyle and fleeting sense of opportunity. The effects a downward economy has had on our generation are monumental and actually the opposite of what trends typically show. In times of hardship, Gen Z is still willing to shell out extra bucks for our personal comforts, even if that means having to use Klarna or doing shady things like charging back purchases or orders. There's so many videos floating around social media about DoorDash drivers confronting customers on lying about receiving their food or making up excuses about it to get refunds. Each one of those videos, those interactions are super awkward and they end up with the customer doing everything they can to avoid judgment or accountability. It never clicked in my head. If you don't have enough money to get the stuff that you want, then you probably should go without it. But the lengths people will go to get a burrito delivered to them don't seem worth it. Usually this is expected at the lower end of the income pool, but with the times being what they are, that line has become blurred, and even people with reliable incomes and savings still engage in fraud to some extent. You might be wondering why people who have the money to get things would still engage in fraud, and well, they don't commit it for the same reasons. It's not out of necessity or survival, but more so they grow tired of a system that doesn't punish the behavior, so they don't see anything wrong with doing it themselves, leading them to think that something like a refund scam or getting a DoorDash order refunded to you is not that big of a deal. I'm not calling for jail cells to be filled with people who refunded a Happy Meal through delivery, but letting people steal out of want rather than need kind of sets a bad example. I can sympathize about taking bread to feed a family, but Chick-fil-A on your lunch break doesn't pull the same heartstrings. These small petty scams usually lead people into bigger operations or schemes by reaffirming the idea in their head that they beat the system once. Why would this time be any different? I'm not really worried about the ethics in this video. It's not the main point. With that being said, one of the major reasons for the increase in scamming and frauding is because it's lucrative and it works, and the ramifications are damn near non-existent. Let's take Logan Paul for example. If you spend any time on YouTube, you're probably familiar with the scandal that he had with CryptoZoo, a failed blockchain game that was kind of an NFT that tanked immediately after going live. And while he did go to a court case for it, nothing has come of it, and it's been almost 4 years. He is not the only celebrity. He joins a long list of celebrities that have done stuff like this, such as Andrew Tate, Sean Kingston, and the Hawk Tuah girl. That's a nightmare blend rotation. But when people see clowns like that get away with fraud, it makes the impact of the crime not as serious. Once we get out the realm of petty theft and refund scams, we usually step in front of the door of pump and dumps and straight up hacking into accounts. While not all of Gen Z is tech literate, a lot of us are, and this gives us a unique advantage in an ever digital world, letting us find backdoors to services or circumvent security measures placed in front of us, making some rich, but really putting a lot of people in the way of crime. The thing I found very unique about this Gen Z fraud epidemic was the fact that it's happening in groups. People are getting together and finding ways to collaborate on how to get money from institutions the illicit way. Groups of teens and 20-year-olds are finding ways to create fake checks, IDs to game a system and get rich. If this doesn't show you that the system is broken in some way, then I think we need to open our eyes. One of my guilty pleasures on YouTube is watching body cam video, especially the ones that happen at the banks, because growing up in the area that I did, I remember people always asking if you had a certain type of bank account. Oh, do you have Wells Fargo? Do you have Banks of America? I can get you 5,000, 10,000. And in the year 2025, things like that are still going on. While I find the videos interesting and sometimes even funny, I really do feel bad for those people. If you're not familiar, what scammers will do is find somebody with a bank and ask them to open up an account or deposit a check, usually of a high figure like $5, $10, $15,000, and they tell the person, hey, if you cash this check in for me, I'll give you X amount %. It's a real real check, don't worry, you'll get away with it. And they ask people who are especially vulnerable and down on their luck to take that risk, and once that person breaks down and does oblige to take that check inside and cash it, the person who talked him into it will sit in the car while the victim is in the bank cashing this check, taking all the fault for the crime, while the scammer just wipes their hands clean of the situation and says, oh, it wasn't my check. While that's very scummy and hard to respect, he's a scammer, what did you expect? But for the person who walked into the bank, that person is who I truly feel sorry for. A lot of Gen Z feels like there's no opportunity to be found. They weigh their options, and when you're unemployed or broke from just spending the last amount of money you had on your check, taking a risk doesn't seem that bad sometimes. Cashing this one iffy check could land you a couple $1,000s and put you ahead for the first time in years. And that's exactly what the system preys on. While I don't believe that fraud is a harmless crime, I have a hard time condemning it. I've touched a lot about economical life on my channel, everywhere from inflation to the job market, and it's easy to feel like you're being scammed as a regular person. Trying to stay on the straight and narrow is harder than ever. Jobs are paying less, hours are being cut, and resources are running thin. So while I don't think it's a great idea to turn to the dark side to make money, I do see why people do it. There's really no place to play morality high ground because people that are rich and wealthy have used the power of scamming and fraud to their advantage. A lot of the inflation that we see right now is because of that. But when we do it, it's seen as fraud. But when they do it, it's seen as a new business practice that has yet to be regulated by the bodies that pertain to it. And when the system doesn't give you many other options, you really have to see how much you can take before you crack. And that's why I think fraud is only one part of the picture. There's many more things that Gen Z is doing that's not necessarily ethical, but it gets the bills paid. I think the illusion of trust and playing by the rules wore off a long time ago, especially with the creation and advancement of the internet. Tricks that people were using to get rich for decades have now been exposed to everybody. With that, people saw how rigged the system was against them. You can work a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life and try to save up and do what you can and make investments, but when the economy is in the position that it's in now, all those opportunities tend to run away and it becomes harder just to even do the bare minimum. I think our generation is tired of being fed a dream that is not going to come true and is getting more and more distant as time passes, and we're tired of justifying our actions. Nobody else does it, so why do we have to make it seem like we're being holier than thou? There are laws and things put in place to keep people in order, but when those start failing and when the punishment for the action doesn't really meet up, then people are going to take the chance. What's the difference between being homeless and having a prison sentence for taking a risk? While I'm not justifying it, at least in prison you get meals. The sad reality of life is no one's really coming to save you. Many are not fortunate to have a family they can rely on in tough times, so the only other alternative if they don't make ends meet is to just be on the street. If you ever done some things that would be considered shady, let me know down below in the comments. Do you think Gen Z is just a lazy generation that has to scam, steal, and cheat their way through everything, or are they just a product of their time? If you haven't liked the video yet, please go ahead and drop a like on the video, and a subscription does more for me than you could ever know. With that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghostthread, signing off.